So what happens when you take the soul of this incredibly empathetic, like emotionally intelligent AI companion and you just force it to do your corporate taxes?
Oh, man. Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for a total disaster, honestly.
Right. I mean, usually when we talk about a transplant in the tech sector, we're talking about, moving code, shifting servers, or migrating data.
Yeah, the basic plumbing.
Exactly. But today, we're talking about something completely different. We're tracing this invisible surgery, the attempt to transplant an entire philosophy of how human beings and machines should interact and just dropping it straight into the nervous system of the world's most ubiquitous software.
And it is a massive gamble. I mean, historically, trying to move a specific culture or a design philosophy from a boutique lab into a planetary scale corporation,
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to pull off without just totally destroying the very thing you're trying to transplant.
Which is exactly what makes today's deep dive so incredibly compelling. So I want to warmly welcome you to the show. Today, we're looking at a brilliant piece from today's date, June 16, 2026, in Tech Reader magazine.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It's titled The Brain Trust, Inside the Microsoft AI Team. And our mission today is to trace this quiet, completely unexpected migration in the tech world.
Right, a migration of ideas, really.
Exactly. We're following a very specific artificial intelligence philosophy that somehow managed to survive a decade, jumping across 3 major companies and ultimately landing right at the center of Microsoft.
And the stakes are huge here.
Oh, totally. Because this isn't just about corporate rivalries. This team is fundamentally trying to rethink how billions of people, including you listening right now, will interact with computers from this point forward.
Yeah, and the context of this migration is really everything. We are talking about the arrival of Mustafa Suleyman and Corinne Simonian at Microsoft. And, the industry watched this happen, but a lot of people totally misunderstood what was actually being acquired. This wasn't just your standard reshuffling of tech executives looking for a fancy new title.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the article makes it incredibly clear that Suleyman, Simonian, and their core team carry with them this very distinct design lineage.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, they have a deeply held set of beliefs about what artificial intelligence should actually feel like to the end user. And to understand that, we have to look back to the environment where it was forged. The source actually calls it the DeepMind Forge.
Yeah, going back to Google DeepMind in the mid-2010s is essential. That place was not it was not your standard corporate R&D wing.
No, not at all.
The article describes it as this bizarre, incredibly fertile hybrid space. Like it was part computer science lab, part moonshot factory, and part philosophical salon.
I love that phrase, philosophical salon. It sounds like they weren't just, building a supercomputer in some sterile, windowless basement.
Right, exactly.
They were building a brain, but heavily insisting that this brain needed to have manners and like a social life. You can't just be the smartest entity in the room. You have to actually know how to behave in the room without alienating everyone.
That's a perfect way to put it. The line between hard mathematical science and deep philosophical speculation was intentionally blurred there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you had researchers sitting down for lunch, and instead of just talking about data pipelines, they were debating the ethics of consciousness. And that environment produced some of the most staggering breakthroughs of the decade. They were working on things like AlphaGo.
Wait. Before we get too deep into the weeds, let's just make sure we clarify that for the listener.
Right.
AlphaGo was the system that beat the human world champion at the board game Go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
But the article mentions it was using something called reinforcement learning to mimic human intuition. How does that actually work under the hood?
So think of traditional programming as giving a computer a really highly detailed instruction manual.
Okay, like a recipe.
Right. You tell it the rules of the game and exactly what moves to make in every scenario. Well, reinforcement learning completely flips that. You give the AI the basic rules of Go, but absolutely no strategy.
Wait, none at all?
None. Instead, you just let it play against itself millions of times. When it wins, it gets a digital reward. So through this relentless trial and error, the system figures out its own strategies.
That's wild.
It is. It begins to make moves that human experts can't even immediately understand, moves that feel, creative or intuitive rather than just brute force calculation.
So the system wasn't just churning through a database of past games. It was actively developing its own reasoning.
Exactly.
And in that same environment, they were building WaveNet, which gave machine-generated voices this uncanny, natural, human-like cadence. It completely eliminated that robotic stutter we all kind of grew up with.
Yeah, that was a huge leap.
And then you add AlphaFold, which solved a 50-year-old biological mystery regarding how proteins fold.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the article emphasizes that these weren't just, isolated tech breakthroughs or parlor tricks designed to dazzle investors.
Right.
AlphaGo, WaveNet, AlphaFold, they were all expressions of a much broader worldview. Suleiman and his colleagues recognized that intelligence inherently emerges from interaction.
That is a massive point. The DeepMind Ethics and Society team, which Suleiman helped shape, was pushing this radical idea that alignment isn't just a bolt-on feature.
Right, and by alignment we mean...
How do we make sure the AI actually acts in the best interest of human beings, right?
Exactly. Too many companies treat alignment like a compliance checklist. It becomes like the terms and conditions you scroll past and click agree right before the software ships.
Basically a legal afterthought.
Exactly the opposite of how DeepMind viewed it. They argued that alignment has to be a core design principle from the very first line of code. Yeah, they believed true intelligence must be agentic, meaning it can take action, but it must be aligned with human values. And it has to be accessible. It has to be grounded in a social context.
So the math alone isn't enough.
No, Suleiman and Simonian learned early on that an AI's tone and behavior matter just as much as its raw calculating power. If an AI is brilliant at math but acts erratically or aggressively, its intelligence is practically useless to a human being.
Because you wouldn't trust it.
Right. The social context is the bridge that makes the math functional.
But a philosophy developed in a lab is really just a theory. You can debate ethics over lunch until you're blue in the face, but to prove the theory actually holds water, you have to put it out into the wild.
You have to let regular consumers poke at it.
Exactly. And that overwhelming desire to test this social brain theory in the real world is directly what caused the team to spin out and create their own independent workshop. So let's move into the next era, Inflection AI.
Yeah. Inflection was the proving ground. They took this grand philosophy of aligned, socially aware intelligence and attempted to forge it into a consumer-grade product.
And that product was a conversational AI named Pi.
Right.
And the design choices behind Pi were just a total rejection of where the rest of the tech industry was heading. While everyone else was practically killing themselves to win benchmark tests or bragging about their tokens per second, Pi was chasing something completely ephemeral. It was chasing tone.
I actually want to pause on that phrase, tokens per second, because it reveals a lot about the industry's mindset.
Oh, definitely.
In the AI world, large language models essentially predict the next word in a sequence. A token is roughly a chunk of a word. So tokens per second is just a raw measure of speed.
Like how fast can the machine vomit out a paragraph of text?
Precisely. It's essentially a drag race for autocomplete.
A very expensive drag race.
Very expensive. And most of the industry was obsessed with building highly efficient, incredibly fast digital assistants. But Inflection was trying to build a companion.
And the pacing of Pi was totally unique.
Yeah.
Like, the source describes it as slow, calm, and voice first. It wasn't this hyper-verbal chatbot desperate to prove how smart it was.
Right, it took its time.
Yeah, it was designed to actively mimic the rhythm of a thoughtful human conversation. It paused. It asked you questions back.
And a huge part of that design was completely eliminating what we call the cognitive tax on the user. Think about how you use most AI tools today. You have to engage in prompt engineering.
Oh, I know this pain well.
Ah.
You have to learn the machine's language.
Yep.
You type something, the AI gives you a bad answer, so you rewrite your prompt, adding 50 adjectives and constraints just to, trick the machine into giving you the format you actually wanted. It is exhausting.
It's a massive cognitive tax. You are doing the work to accommodate the machine. But Pi required zero prompt engineering.
That sounds amazing.
It was. It operated on what the team called a tap-on-the-shoulder philosophy. It had an ambient presence, it was attentive, it was always available, but it never demanded anything from you.
It just waited for you.
Exactly. It made the user feel genuinely heard without crossing the line into this creepy artificial intimacy.
I love that idea. It kind of gave the brain a soul, or at least the closest thing a machine could possibly have to a point of view. But I have to stop you here, and I really want to push back on this narrative based on what's in the text.
Okay, go for it.
I'm just struggling to buy that this was a pure, unmitigated success. If Pi was truly this beloved, perfect companion that removed all the friction, well, the market usually rewards that, right?
Actually, yes.
Good products survive. So why did the team leave? Why couldn't Pi just survive on its own merits as a standalone business?
That is the million-dollar question, or rather, the multi-billion-dollar question.
Right.
The product was beautiful, but it ran headfirst into the brutal economics of artificial intelligence. The reality is that training and running frontier-class models, which are the absolute cutting-edge, massive systems powering something as nuanced as Pi, is staggeringly expensive.
Define that cost difference for us, because I think people are used to standard software apps that scale really cheaply.
Right, so with traditional software, you write the code once, you put it on a server, and 1 million people can download it. The server costs are negligible.
It's just pennies.
Exactly. But with a frontier-class AI model, the system is performing massive, complex mathematical calculations using giant clusters of GPU's graphics processing units every single time a user asks it a question.
Every single time.
Every single time. So the computing power required just to generate a thoughtful, empathetic response about your bad day at work is astronomically high.
So even if your users absolutely adore the product and they're paying, 10 or 20 bucks a month for a subscription, those server bills are just bleeding the company dry.
The math simply does not work for a startup. The philosophy was sound, the product was celebrated, but without a massive pre-existing distribution platform to offset those compute costs and generate widespread monetization, even the most soulful AI companion cannot financially survive.
You need a host.
Right. You cannot scale a consumer AI product of that magnitude in a vacuum.
So facing those brutal economics, the soul of Pi essentially needed a new host body. It needed a host with infinitely deep pockets and a planetary scale infrastructure. And that realization is exactly what triggered this massive migration to Redmond, the Microsoft transplant.
Yeah, and when Microsoft brought in Suleiman, Simonian, and a huge chunk of the Inflection team, the broader tech industry completely misread the room. The headlines all treated it as a standard acqui-hire.
Let's clarify that term too. An acqui-hire is usually when a tech giant buys a failing startup, totally kills the product, and just absorbs the engineers into their massive corporate machine to work on unrelated projects, right?
Yes.
It's a soft landing for a startup that burned through its venture capital.
That happens every day in Silicon Valley. But the TechReader article explicitly points out that Microsoft didn't actually buy the product. They left Pi's code, its training data, and the application itself entirely behind.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Microsoft basically hired the world's best chef and their entire kitchen staff, but they completely left the restaurant and all the recipes behind.
I love that analogy.
They didn't want the food. They just wanted the chef's taste.
And what's fascinating here is what that taste represents to Microsoft. They bought the people, their highly tuned design instincts, and their conversational DNA.
Right.
And Microsoft didn't just tuck them away in some obscure windowless research department to tinker. This newly formed team was given a standalone division, and they report directly to Microsoft's CEO, Satya Nadella.
That is an unbelievable amount of corporate leverage.
Yeah.
I mean, you do not get a direct, unfiltered line to the CEO just to tweak the font color on a chat window.
Oh, absolutely not. The mandate they were given was unprecedented. Microsoft didn't want them to build a marginally better digital assistant.
Oh.
They challenged this deeply philosophical, human-centric team to take their social brain concept and weave it as a system-level intelligence entirely through Windows, Office, Edge, and the broader Microsoft ecosystem.
So Microsoft bought the philosophy to fundamentally alter their own digital environment. But man, talk about a violent clash of worlds.
Oh, big time.
We're talking about taking the DNA of an emotionally intelligent conversational companion and injecting it into highly rigid, compliance-driven corporate workflow software.
Yeah.
The article spends a lot of time framing this as a massive philosophical clash.
It is the ultimate tension in AI design right now. On one hand, you have the lineage of Pi, which is intimate, opinionated, and optimized for human presence and pacing.
Right.
On the other hand, you have Microsoft Copilot, which must be universally applicable, highly predictable, and optimized for raw productivity, task delegation, and strict enterprise trust.
I just cannot get over the absurdity of this pairing when you really look at it. How on earth do you build emotional intelligence into a tool that also needs to strictly write Excel formulas for a hedge fund?
It's a tall order.
It feels like asking your incredibly empathetic, soulful therapist to suddenly sit down and do your corporate taxes. Like, I hear your frustration about these pivot tables. Let's hold space for that trauma.
That is a hilarious image.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
The environments demand completely different behavior.
It is funny, but it highlights the exact reason this specific team was hired. Microsoft realized this is not just a technical problem involving better code.
Right, it's bigger than that.
It is a profound design and philosophical problem. How do you preserve the humanity and the ease of use that Pi had inside a product that has to satisfy rigid corporate compliance officers and enterprise security audits?
Because if the AI is too opinionated or too conversational, it becomes a liability for a corporation.
Exactly.
It might hallucinate a bad financial projection because it's trying to be, like, creative. But if it's too robotic and rigid, everyday people simply won't trust it with their workflows. They won't adopt it.
But look at the sequential lineage of this team, though. They're uniquely positioned because they've already solved compounding versions of this exact problem.
Okay, how so?
Well, at DeepMind, they learned the raw science of how to build reasoning intelligence from scratch. At Inflection, they figured out the design language of how to make that intelligence feel human, relational, and low friction.
Ah, I see.
And now, at Microsoft, they're the only team equipped to figure out how to make that human-feeling intelligence useful at a planetary scale while navigating all of that corporate friction.
So they're synthesizing the three distinct eras of their own professional lives.
Precisely.
But to actually resolve this massive clash between intimacy and enterprise utility, the team realized they couldn't just keep building chat widgets.
No, chat widgets are a dead end for this.
Right. A chat widget, no matter how smart, is always going to feel like a separate entity on your screen you have to go talk to. They had to fundamentally redefine what the AI actually was within the computer itself.
Which brings us to the most ambitious part of the article, the new vision of the AI as an orchestrator.
Yes, the orchestrator. The piece outlines that the endgame for Microsoft Copilot is no longer just a smart chatbot sitting in a sidebar on your screen. It's an intelligence layer, sitting entirely above the operating system.
We have to explain what that actually means mechanically, because the shift from a companion to an orchestrator is profound.
Go for it.
A chatbot is confined to its own little window. You type a question, it types an answer. But an orchestrator has system-level permissions. It actively understands your intent across your entire digital environment.
Okay, I want to use an analogy here to make sure I'm grasping this. A chatbot is basically like a really smart librarian. You have to walk up to their desk, ask for a specific book, and they go find it and hand it to you.
Right.
But an orchestrator is more like a highly proactive executive assistant. They already read your calendar, they pulled the relevant book, they highlighted the chapters you need, and they left it open on your desk before you even sat down.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. The orchestrator can see what is happening on your screen.
Wow.
Yeah, it can parse the text in the email application, autonomously open Microsoft Word, draft a response based on the context of the email, and format it perfectly. And it can do all of this because it's integrated into the OS layer itself, acting like an invisible mouse and keyboard on your behalf.
So what does this all mean for the listener, sitting at their desk right now, going about their day?
It changes everything.
The article makes it clear that this isn't just a background software update that makes your laptop battery last 10 minutes longer. This is a fundamental paradigm shift in how humans will interact with their devices. The goal is to make AI incredibly powerful without being cold, and to make it ever-present without being intrusive.
And this raises an important question about our own daily limitations. Think about your own cognitive overhead.
Oh, it's massive.
Right. Think about how much mental energy you spend every single day just navigating between different apps, finding lost files and nested folders, formatting documents, and translating your actual intent into a series of manual clicks and keystrokes.
It is the exhausting friction of modern computing. We spend half our time managing the machine instead of doing the actual work.
Now imagine an orchestrator layered entirely through your operating system that completely absorbs that friction. It understands the natural rhythm of your work, it relates to you naturally without you having to use complex prompt engineering, and it executes tasks across the entire system.
That would be incredible.
It completely changes your relationship with work, with your own creativity, and with the machine itself. The computer stops being a blunt tool that you have to wield, and it starts being an environment that actively anticipates you.
It really is the ultimate synthesis. DeepMind gave this team the tools to build systems that reason. Inflection gave them the design language to build systems that relate. And Microsoft gives them the sheer scale and compute power to build systems that actually matter to billions of people simultaneously.
It really is.
It's a stunning decade-long journey for one core team to make.
They are attempting to prove that even at the highest possible levels of global enterprise scale, human-centric design and empathy don't have to be sacrificed on the altar of productivity.
Well, thank you so much for guiding us through this tech reader piece today. It is deeply fascinating to see how this team's journey really represents a fight to ensure that the AI of the future actually respects human pacing and tone, rather than just forcing all of us to adapt to the machine's relentless speed.
It's a critical fight for the future of computing, and we are all going to experience the outcome on our own screens very, very soon.
But tracing this entire philosophy does leave me with one final, slightly provocative thought to ponder, building on everything we've just discussed today.
Oh, what's that?
If this brain trust actually succeeds, if they build a universally distributed, perfectly empathetic orchestrator that seamlessly handles all of our digital friction, perfectly anticipates our needs, and communicates with flawless, customized emotional pacing will, dealing with actual, messy, unpredictable human beings start to feel like too much friction by comparison.
Wow, that is the ultimate lingering paradox of perfectly aligned technology.
Could the perfect AI companion eventually ruin our patience for the friction of real life? Just something for you to mull over the next time you find yourself annoyed that a real, living person didn't respond to your text message as smoothly or perfectly as an algorithm would have. Because sometimes you can successfully transplant the philosophy into the machine, but you really have to wonder how that ongoing interaction eventually changes the host. Thank you for joining us on today's deep dive. Stay insanely curious.